There's a moment in the book of Bereshit, in the book of Genesis, that haunts me each year, unlike any other. Jacob has tricked his father Isaac into giving him the blessing of the firstborn, the birthright. Not much later, after Jacob dresses in furs to pass as Esau before his aging father, Esau himself enters with a meal for his father, ready to receive the same blessing. When Isaac understands the ruse that has just occurred, he violently trembles, and then he apologizes to Esau. He's already given away the blessing, and it cannot be reversed. Esau weeps and begs his father, "Have you but one blessing, my father? Bless me too." Both father and son, they look at each other, coming to terms with the divine scarcity that they feel. There can only be one blessing, and it's already gone. I'm disturbed by this story because of what it purports to teach us about blessing. The ancient birthright comes with specific property claims that can only be given to one brother or the other, sure. But the significance of the birthright seems to be about something much more. It's about favor. It's about being seen by one's family. It's about not being erased from the story. By the end, both Isaac and Esau, and I think also Jacob, seem to believe that blessing itself is in scarce supply. And when something so precious is also so scant, it might make sense to hold on to it, to not share it widely, maybe even to steal it out of the hands of someone else. What does this say about our capacity to bless? If there's not even enough for both of your own children, what does this say about God? And what does this say about us? And maybe most urgently, for our story, if you grow up in a family that believes that there's not enough blessing for anyone, is it ever really possible to break that cycle? If this is the way our tradition actually wanted us to think about blessing, full stop, I too would weep. But this week's Parsha revisits these questions of limited blessing and this now multi-generational family trauma. But the Parsha begins with the potential reemergence of divine scarcity. Joseph brings forward his own sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, to his father Jacob for a blessing. Following the custom, Joseph directs his eldest son, Manasseh, to stand by Jacob's right hand, the side representing favor and power. His younger son, Ephraim, stands by the left hand. And at the very last moment, before Jacob blesses the boys, he takes his two hands, he crosses them. Now the right hand sits by the younger son and not the eldest. Feels like a repetition of what had happened to Jacob when he was a child. A blessing which seems to be given out incorrectly. A suggestion that only one of the two boys can be favored. Could it possibly be that Jacob would interfere once again with the birthright? I mean, after all the pain and the favoritism, all the pain that his favoritism caused, it's almost impossible to imagine that Jacob would willingly pass that wound onto the next generation. Jacob, who gave his favored son Joseph a coat, which fomented so much intense anger amongst his own sons, which made them feel like their father's love, that his blessing must in fact be scarce. Would Jacob really make that same mistake again with his own grandchildren? Joseph must feel this pain as well. Despite being the dreamer who imagined that his older brothers would bow before him, he still places his sons in the proper birth order before their grandfather. He wants to follow convention. He wants to follow custom, despite all that he had been through, maybe because of what he had been through. Something else must be happening here. If Jacob has grown from past experience, what is he trying to teach his family now? Jacob is not favoring one brother over the other, but maybe he's trying to teach something to his family about these sons' names and about their destiny. We learn in the Parsha, in an earlier Parsha, we learned that Joseph named the firstborn Menashe, meaning God has made me forget completely my hardship and my parental home. And the second he named Ephraim, meaning God has made me fertile in the land of my affliction. Joseph names the firstborn, acknowledging his desire to forget the suffering of his turbulent life. In becoming a father to a new generation, Joseph is finally able and ready to begin to move on. But only in naming his second son is Joseph able to understand the blessing that has come through the same period. Despite all that had happened to Joseph, the ups and downs, being sold into slavery, going to jail, Joseph is now an influential leader in the Egyptian court. In so many ways, the dreams of his youth came true. And the blessing of this place is intensified in the story when the entire family is reunited in Egypt after so many years apart. All of this chaos ended up for good. Jacob did not name his grandsons, but he seems to understand the stakes of their names. He understands that the message in the second name needs to be primary. By reversing his hands, by blessing Ephraim first, Jacob is suggesting that we don't heal by forgetting, but rather by remembering and reframing. Looking from a different angle and seeing gratitude and abundance where it really does exist. In a new book called Why We Remember, Dr. Charan Raghunath explains that each time we recall a memory from the past, we're not pulling out an exact recounting of a dispassionate set of facts. Rather, each time we recall a memory, we are reconstructing it. We're pulling not only from the initial experience, but also from all of the different times we've recalled that memory in all of the different places. This means that our memories can be very malleable. Not that we're regularly making up things that did not happen, though that can happen at times as well. But the perspective from which we view our memories can change over time. The process of remembering, of recalling our past and looking at it through a lens of gratitude and of a wide perspective, I think that's one of our core religious tasks. Not to minimize pain, to eliminate the hurts and the negativity, but to reconstruct and reframe these events through gratitude, through possibility, and through hope. I mean, what is the Passover Seder but this, a practice of remembering, of reconstructing, and retelling? Jacob understands this. His life has been as turbulent as Joseph's, if not more so. Not only has he spent the last years thinking that his most beloved son has been killed, but in his quieter moments, he must also dwell on the rivalry with his own brother Esau and the 14 years of labor in the house of Laban. He is the son of a father who almost sacrificed his own father at the Akedah. The intergenerational trauma is so deep. And at the end of his life, Jacob understands that those who live turbulent lives will do better not to forget, but rather to reconstruct. So he puts his right hand on Ephraim, the younger son with the forward-looking name, and he blesses. And if this is the case, that Jacob wants to teach his family about the primacy of remembering, then perhaps the switching of the names, the switching of the hands, and the conversation between Jacob and Joseph can also serve as a tikkun, as a repair, to the belief that divine scarcity was ever present in the earlier generations of Genesis. The medieval scholar Barbanel notes that there's something notable about Jacob's response when Joseph tries to correct him from giving the blessing seemingly incorrectly. Jacob stops him and says, "Yadati veni, yadati." I know, my son, I know. And then he explains why he wants to do it in this particular way. But Barbanel asks, why does Jacob repeat the word "I know," yadati, twice? He suggests that the repetition signifies that there are two things that Jacob knows. There's two different things that Jacob wants to say to his son. He says "I know" twice because both brothers, each of the brothers, are meant to share in the blessing. In other words, he says, "Yadati, I know. Menashe is the oldest. He will play an important role in the tribes of Israel. He will not be erased. And also, Yadati, I know. Ephraim is destined to greater political leadership, just like all of the younger siblings of our family. He also will not be erased." And this plays out. Both brothers, Ephraim and Manasseh, each become part of the 12 tribes of Israel. In this way, Joseph is doubly blessed. But each of his sons carries on an essential part of the Jewish story. The leadership of the people will run through the tribe of Ephraim. Joshua ben Nun, the leader who will succeed Moses, comes from the tribe of Ephraim. This is where the story of Genesis, of Bereshit, ends, teaching us that in the complex story of life, our families and our history, blessing is not limited. When we prioritize telling our stories in which gratitude and hidden possibility take center stage, we will find the hidden blessing. If we keep telling our story, if we continue to tell it in its fullness, we will find more and more and more blessing. In this new year, we have an opportunity to decide how we tell our stories. Not to forget where we've been, but to frame it. To cross our hands when the moment calls for it and to shift the narrative. Oh, you want to pull this down? Okay. When we stop telling our stories as stories of scarcity, blessing multiplies. Each night, Emily and I sing the words of Jacob's blessing from this parsha to our own daughters. Hamalach hagoel oti. May the messenger who redeemed me from all harm bless these children. In them may my name be recalled, and the names of my ancestors Abraham and Isaac, and may they be teeming multitudes upon the earth. As we send our daughters off to sleep, we pray that they will have big dreams. They will understand what Jacob understood about our God. That we pray to a God who is big enough to hear each of us, the powerful and the vulnerable, the Jew and the non-Jew, our biggest requests and also our smallest whispers in a moment of doubt. We remind our daughters that they are blessed and that their role is not only to hold on to blessing, but to increase blessing throughout our people and throughout the world. Honestly, it's more of a blessing that we sing to them, but we mean it for ourselves. To remind us how to take hold of our story and to let the blessing flow. Shabbat Shalom.